Ocmaya, the Global Paradigm Expansion Project. Who is this for? Who's the target? So the educational platform, Ocmaya as an educational platform, is for individuals who bring two things. One is a passionate drive for change to create a substantial global positive impact. And the other is willingness to learn by investing time to understand. So if this second part does not really apply, if we are not willing to invest the time for substantial change, the substantial change will probably not come. So it's very important that we invest the time to stop, think, reflect, meditate on what is it that we are actually doing, what is it that we want to achieve, and what are how could these novel contemporary sciences help us in achieving. If you want a pre-made solution for a specific problem, then there are millions across the world. Just as a warning, how have they been doing? Have they been working very well? Probably not very good. Now, obviously, you can say, well, this doesn't tell me much information because this could be everyone. And yes, it could. Right? But I could still offer some more like a legacy view, right, of who can this be for, with some examples. Right here, I call it a tiny overview because this is just one of the many things that can be achieved by using the educational platform. So if you're a business leader, so if you want some kind of transformation in your organization, for example, you want to apply agile methodology into a large corporation and don't really understand why it's not working, then you could, for example, understand and apply fractal dimensions within corporations. Now, what this is and how this would work, obviously, is a big topic. But essentially, it's measuring, or has the ability of measuring complexity and measuring roughness. And this can be applied, for example, in logistics costs, which could be heavily reduced. Also by pattern identification in supply chains, or simply by looking at ways to measure the corporate structures that you have. For example, if you don't have a typical functional structure. So if you have such structures as, say, for agile or this structures which essentially are based out of projects instead of functions, then making sense out of them is possible with fractal dimension. This is, again, very tiny because complexity, holistic views, experience-oriented management, human centricity, chaos theory, all of these more modern views will then bring dozens, if not hundreds, of further benefits. So this is purely for business leaders, depending on the transformation that they want, on the problem that they want. This new view or a novel paradigm will be able to help them in any transformation that they want to achieve. Academics and researchers can find novel paths. So this is not peer-reviewed. This essentially merges and asks the question, what if we integrate contemporary sciences into management, economics, and politics? And this could revolutionize several ways of looking at our world and developing not only new theories, but also developing novel empirical research. So, for example, in terms of nonlinear management, what would that be? How could that work? In terms of complex management, what would that mean to integrate linearity and nonlinearity? Human-centered economic approaches. So how would that be like? What would this mean in terms of not focusing only on processes, but focusing on the abilities that people have and how you can improve said abilities individually, and also complex value-oriented economic policies that you don't only focus on, let's say, GDP, but can achieve other ways of measuring macroeconomics, which would better integrate the costs that are being generated not only within the GDP measurement, but also through the impacts of the external costs, right? The externalities that are being created, as well as the costs generated across time. For society in general, this is actually the most important point and where the value could lie most heavily. Just imagine that you could not read or write, and none of us could read or write. The amount of non-literacy in the world would generate a dramatic drop in our ability to understand the world and in our ability to create value for humans. This is the status quo that we have right now in terms of contemporary science literacy. So literacy of contemporary science would mean that people would have the ability to enable transformations, to create novel outputs by having a much better understanding of their world, of the complexities of the world. And this would bring forth several improvements or several positive outcomes. For example, we could have more willingness to transform in a positive manner, and we will be less susceptible to harmful ideologies. By understanding the world as it is and not as we thought it was millions of years ago, or thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago, for example, purely through religion or purely through simple Newtonian mechanics, through very simplified cause and effect, or models that work under very, very difficult conditions that typically do not or are not observable in our complex world. They can build a more sustainable future and create a more sustainable narrative, and also empower and provide a much better base for development, independent if you are in developed economy or in a developed. This will have when obviously given the chance, will have the appropriate base to generate a dramatic impact in the way we see the world and in the way we act. And international organizations, for example, they can also benefit by building strong cases against individual reductionist and sometimes outdated views, many times inaccurate. This can generate complex outputs that can provide the much needed structure for complexity, for solving complex problems that bring the complex views and understanding of complexity in general, so that we can tackle global problems with global complex solutions that are not only aiming at being palliative, right, at lowering the impacts of the negative ways that we create costs, but actually from the source, by asphyxiating the sources of inefficiencies from the source. So it really doesn't matter what you do, if it's a nonprofit, if it's a government institution, small business, a family business, any formal organization, or if you are just a consumer who wants to understand where these costs are coming from, then this platform is powerful enough to show you how we can better understand our world to enable transformation within and across the world, and desperately increase our desperately needed inefficiencies. So I guess this is a good summary. As I told you, you need two things. One is passion of substantial positive impact. The other is just investing the time to understand. If you want to know exactly how this could work, because I understand that this is very broad, right? And all of the other videos, I make it a point to show that I understand this. I understand very well that we have been taught to find a problem, isolate it from everything else, right? Solve that specific problem, right? And how we have this global manner of dividing the world into specializations. And obviously, if you are a branding expert and you saw this video and I didn't talk about branding, so obviously this video is not for you because you're specialized purely on branding. I understand that completely. I hope that I can make the case that you understand that these specializations, and by looking at the world at this very dramatically simplified bits, is actually part of the problem. So if you want a very, very detailed way of understanding how this can be used, then please check out the other resources, specifically the example video. And again, you have to just bring time, and there it will be shown how, by applying a holistic view, it's possible to create dramatic improvements, not only for an organization, but also across the world.